Hi, my name is Kevin Beckers. I'm a professional 3D character artist, and in this video I'm going to show you how I made this newest character called Astro Dachshund, which is designed by Eran Alboher, who is an amazing 2D artist. You can find him on Instagram. He makes these really cool, very stylized, very colorful animal illustrations. Really cool. Check him out. Find the link to his Insta below in the description. In this video I'm going to show you how I did the modeling, rendering, grooming, all the good stuff. It's going to be a follow along, not so necessarily a tutorial. So I'm going to explain some things, especially in the lighting section, why I'm doing certain things. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it, and let's get started. So, as per usual, I always start out with a sphere. I set the concept image in the background as a reference. In this case, what makes the concept image so cool is of course the cuteness, but also the lines and shapes Eran is known for. So I'm going to try and capture those as close as possible, and having the image in the background really help with that. Since this is a heavily stylized 2D concept, I'm not going to think about anatomy too much. I'm just going to model it in pose as close to the 2D image as possible. My intention is to have the model work mostly from the angle of the concept, which is an almost orthographic side view. So although I'll make it a character that can work from all angles, I will be positioning and shaping certain parts to work best from the side angle. And last but not least, this is just a fun little project just to recreate an illustration in the evenings. So on a technical level, it's going to be quick and dirty. It's just meant to be a little wind down, simple fun, and definitely not the way I and you should model when it's for an actual production model with nice UVs and topology. So with all that being said, the next section is just going to be straight up sculpting. Not too much to be said about that, so I'll shut up until we get to the lighting and rendering parts later on in the video. my favorite part, lighting and rendering. I'm sorry, by the way, for the lost footage in the modeling section. Not sure what happened there, but I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. So for rendering, I use Maya and V-Ray. I have a product visualization background and so many product packaging and promotional renders for Philips and Miele. Whenever you go to Amazon and you see a picture of a Philips shaver, me or one of my colleagues could have made that one. So yeah, I'm going to use some of those techniques for those renders because with product visualization, at least the ones I did, it was never about making it realistic. It just had to be appealing, and you can break almost every rule to get it as long as it looks good and convincing. So since this is stylized 2D, yeah, I'm going to use that. To get the render to what it is now, I had to experiment a lot because it's V-Ray GPU, which has some limitations. Some features just don't work, which I would use normally. And B, it's in Maya, and relatively recently switched to Maya from Max. So yeah, I'm still figuring out where certain very specific tools and options are located. So in the video, you can see my first step for rendering and texturing is I usually start out with a neutral scene, simple gray scene with basically a clay render, an HDR and mid-value grays so I can match the lighting to it, making sure the lights are not too bright. So when I use a white, it doesn't burn out, we call it burning out. It overexposed is probably the right term. So mid-value gray, I'll set that up first before I start texturing, simply because I kind of like to see what something looks like in the render as opposed to just Substance Painter. So I can switch between the two really quick. Having that set up already, it's just a nice workflow for me anyway. So with a base HDR set up, I'm just trying to match the lighting from the concept a little bit here. Using V-Ray planar lights. Trying to determine the size so I get softer shadows, the angle, that kind of stuff. I have the pure ref off screen, so I'm referencing that. So now that I'm pretty happy with the initial lighting setup, play render, the floor, it looks cool, but what I want is a pure white background, just like the sketch. So I'm going to use the overrides, the environment overrides, to set the background to white, and then use the V-Ray object properties to set the floor as a matte object with shadows enabled. And now, of course, because the HDR is still set to visible, you'll see the HDR, but I should turn that off. Voila, pure white. One last thing to do is change the refraction, because now that's set to black, but when I set that to white as well, you get nice white refraction, like it looks like it's part of the whole scene. One nice big white background. So here I'm playing around, making it a little bit less white, just a little off gray, seems to give it a little bit of volume kind of thing. So with that set up, I'm going to start up Substance Painter. So first thing I like to do after baking in Substance Painter is just assign really basic shaders. Just make folders for the different pieces like metal, plastic, fabric, skin, all that kind of stuff. Just organize that already. So that's what I'm doing here. Just really simple shaders, no texturing. Once I'm happy with how I set everything up, I'm going to export all the textures already. Here I'm adding an extra output channel opacity, which doesn't export by default, which I'm going to use for the refraction on the dome in Maya. So now that I have that, I'm going to set up two shaders, because it's two texture sets. And I'm going to skip through that process a little bit for no reason whatsoever. Now with my shaders set up and my base scene ready, I'm just gonna try and improve on the lighting and the texturing iteratively. The cool thing about this workflow is I can just, with Substance Painter in the background, make adjustments there, hit export, and Maya will auto reload, and I can just quickly do a little render, see what works. I'm going to be adjusting lighting. So yeah, that's what this section is going to be from here on out. I'm just going to be quiet. I don't have to narrate everything. So if something is particularly confusing, I'll narrate that part a little bit. And yeah, the X-Gen part, of course. final stretch, fur, grooming. So yeah, that was most of the rendering part. I edited out a lot of the testing and tweaking, but yeah, that's generally the gist of it. Now on to said groom. I use XGen Core to lay out my guides, but before I can start with that, I need a good fur mesh. So back to ZBrush. I'll take the original model and I'll deflate it by a few points, because I want to keep the final render to have approximately the same shape as the original model. But if I add XGen onto the original model, naturally the hair will add a bit of thickness, so I need a model that's a bit skinnier than the original. Before I deflate, I will store a morph target, so after I've deflated I can easily paint out areas, problem areas that have intersected or become too thin and might give issues later on, so that's an important part. Then once I'm happy with that, I'm gonna cut out pieces that won't have any fur. So yeah, the middle torso, that part, yeah, doesn't need to be there, because you won't see that anyway. So that will not be generating any groom. So before I made that description, I made sure to create a texture reference object of the fur mesh, in case I decide to do a turntable or something, have it move around. That way the groom follows the mesh properly. So I've added a XGen description, which is going to be 1, because this is only needs simple fur. Yeah, and I'm laying down guides. I have a picture of the cutest little dachshund on my pure ref on my other monitor, so I'm using that to reference the hair direction. And yeah, from here on out, it's mostly just laying down guides. I'll chat a little more when I set up the actual hair. But yeah, there's not much to say about that, so that'll be pretty quick. And then for the last part of this video, I'm going to show a little bit of really basic compositing. One thing I did in this render, as opposed to the last render in this video, is I added a little bit of a light source here to lighten up this area, to get that smile a little bit more defined, because it was getting lost in the shadow here a little bit, so I added a little bit of an extra light here. And then another big thing that is different from this render and the concept, of course, is, apart from it being a bit darker, this version, is there's a big reflection here. And normally I would usually try and do that in render, but unfortunately with V-Ray GPU I can't control how much GI a certain object emits. It's all 1 by default in a V-Ray GPU, whereas in CPU you can tell it to emit 20% of the normal GI being cast from a model. Why is that important? Well, here is a version with the reflection turned on, and the reflection looks great. It's cool, but because it's reflecting a lot of white, it's also making this area a lot brighter, and I don't want that. The concept is pretty dark underneath, and I feel like this has more of a 3D feel. This just looks a little bit bland and 2D-ish, very flat. So I'll have to composite it because I can't control that on V-Ray GPU, and I don't want to render with CPU. So what I did is I rendered a mask, a very basic mask. And I'm just gonna copy that mask into the mask channel of the reflection pass, invert it, making sure that I'm using the outside of the model, not the inside of the model. And then all goes well. I should have the reflection, but still the original dog here. Now there's a little bit of an issue here. It's not making great contact. You get this little white line. So I'm just gonna paint that out. See, now it's nice and natural, like it's not too composited. Just gonna do that for all the parts that actually make contact with the floor. Go. That's nice. And then the last little thing I did is I rendered out a glare map. So I'm just gonna screen that on top and lower it because it's a bit too bright. This will work. Maybe make this a little bit less bright. This reflection pass also, I added anistropy. I never say that word. I only read it, so I hope I said it correctly. But that makes sure that I get not just a one-to-one reflection of the dog, but something a little bit streaky like this, because in the render it kind of appears to have, in the concept it kind of appears to have that as well. So I tried to match that a little bit. So that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. This is my very first YouTube video, or any video for that matter, so excuse me if it's a bit janky at times. I did this for practice and I hope to get better at it in my next video, which should be a bit longer video with one of my characters called Mweshi. Shout out to Eran Alboher for making such great work, and let me know in the comments below what you would like to see me improve, and maybe in the future I'll get a better microphone. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.